Hello and welcome. In this video I'm going to show you how to create a basic residential window and a simple internal door from my Infinite Openings tool. As many of you will know, this tool can do quite a lot. It can do any shape window, you can have custom profiles in your frames, you can skew the mullions and transoms, and you can have any arrangement of panels and operable elements that you choose. However, as the tool is quite complex, sometimes it's the simple things that seem a little bit harder to do. So I'm going to take you through the interface and the main pages and how you configure your basic door and window. So let's start with the window. Open up the dialog. I'm just going to go to the start of the dialog. So on this page we have our component catalogs. There will be a video on this shortly. And from this page we can navigate through our entire assembly. Or we can use the drop down. Now when it comes to more simple elements, such as a standard residential window, there's sort of a few pages that you really need to pay attention to. Those pages are your panel arrangement and your operable elements and their sub pages. Okay, so let's get started. Let's just say we want to create a typical sliding window that is standard size, say 1500 by 1200. The first thing we need to do is we set those sizes. So we can come up here and we can do it up here, or we can go into the overall sizes page, nominal sizes and tolerances, and we can do it in here using the standard Graphisoft images. So we want 1500 wide by 1200 high. Then we need to go into the panel arrangement. So from here I'll go to the panel arrangement. Now I just want a typical window, so I don't want all these mullions and transoms, so I basically just turn this down. So one column, one row. Now you can see what we have here is an awning window. There's some casing on that, so I'm just going to go turn that casing off. So the casing is part of the fixtures. So within fixtures we have cover plates, casings, sills, header and lintel, and the wall closer features. So we'll go to our casing. We're just going to turn that one off. Outside casing, turn that off. So here we have a typical awning window. Now we want that to be a slider. We go to our operable elements page. Now this is where we define the type of operable element and the size of its components. So we want sliding. Now there's three options for sliding. There is a single sliding pane, and that can be coupled with the head track unit so that that element actually slides across the wall. But we just want a typical slider. So there we go. Click OK. And there is our standard sliding window. Now we can start to go in and define the size of the various parts of the geometry, so the frame, thicknesses and widths. So let's go back into the tool. And we want to go into the frame. So we go up here and we go to frame profile. In the frame profile we can select what type of profile we're going to use, whether it's a rectangular profile or a polygon. When you select polygon, you can move the frame profile around as if it was a slab entity so that you can define the profile that you require. We're just going to stay with rectangular for now. So a typical residential window, size of the frame will probably be something like, depending on whether it's timber or aluminium, we might do say 40 by 70, or maybe it's even smaller than that. Maybe it's a 50 by 35. Okay, now we've got our frame. We need to go and define the operable element sizes. So for that, we go back down to operable elements and we click on window sash. Now in the window sash, we define the sash frame. So this thickness here, we'll set that to 20 mil by 20. We'll just assume this is an aluminium frame, quite narrow. Our glass thickness, 6 standard, maybe 8 mil. And then we nominate how the glass is positioned. Typically it would be centered. If you wish, you can change that to manual and you can type in whatever offset you desire. For now we'll keep that at centered. And there you have a standard sliding window. If for some reason the client changes their mind and they want that window to be perhaps an awning or a double hung, all you need to do is go back into the operable elements, click on the element and change the window type. Now your slider is a typical double hung. Once you have done that stage, you can go through and do all the typical things, assign all your casing elements or sill elements. There is also a new lintel feature in that. I'll just turn that on. You can see we get a lintel arrangement above the top there. Now, let's say this window, that's your typical small window. Let's say we want to do a larger window. Very easy. We don't need to start again. We can stay where we are. Now we just go back into the nominal sizes because we want something a bit taller. And we'll go to a 2100 full height window. Let's say we want to divide this into 4 sections, have some fixed, some awning. So we go down to our panel arrangement. Over here you'll notice there's a adjust UI position and size menu. In here we can actually adjust the positioning and size of this element in the user interface. We can therefore make it more like the shape that we are trying to create, or we can just spread it out so it's easier to read. I'm just going to move this across a little bit, as though this is overlapping. And I'll drop it down the same. Okay, now we've got a fairly tall window, so I'm just going to extend this a little bit, just so it looks a little bit more realistic. You don't need to go through this. Obviously it's pretty easy to read what is going on here, but this is just making it a little bit more realistic. We should do 21 by 15. That's actually a multiple of the size of the window. Okay, now we want to put in a transom and we want to put in a mullion. So therefore we need 2 columns and we also need 2 rows. We need to turn on each element. Then obviously based on the sizes we've got here, we need to reduce those sizes down. To do that, we go into the mullion and transom page, mullions and transoms, and we set the size. We're just going to set this to match the frame. Makes it easy. Okay, now we're going to go back to our panel arrangement page and we're going to adjust some of the sizes here. Just shrink this up a little bit. So if we turn these equals off, we can then set our sizes. So let's just say we want that at 750. Okay, now we want to move this operable element. We'll choose 2 fixed panes down the bottom and we'll have a fixed pane and an awning window up the top. So to do that, go to our operable elements, select the start and end positions of this element to reposition it. So we're going to start with the end so we don't turn it inside out. We might just move this as well. Should adjust these defaults. Okay, so we set the end up here, set the start down there. That's reposition our operable element. Now what we need to do is if we uncheck that box, we can then change that to an awning. Click OK. Position that in a better spot. And there is our standard full height window. Now let's take a look at doing an internal door. Not an internal wall, I know, but it doesn't really matter. So you can see here I've sort of been playing around. I expanded the interface. Basically when you want to see all this interface, typically you'd open it up and it might look something like that. This would probably start off more like around there. The trick to getting this interface the size you want is to close down all the other tabs. So if I close down that tab and I want to get this interface larger, then I just increase it. That allows me to increase this here and make it a little bit more realistic. I can once again increase that further so I can see the last couple elements. Then when I open up my preview, it doesn't reduce as much, it only reduces what it needs to. If we bump this up 3, that brings everything back in again. Okay, so a simple door. Obviously for a simple internal door we don't want all these mullions and transoms. But we do have an operable element that's located in the middle of them, so we need to move that element down into the first position. Otherwise we get an error message because you're trying to place an operable element in a place that's not available once you reduce it down. So to avoid that error message, what we'll do is we'll go to our operable elements. Adjust this a bit so we can see. And we'll just move this down into the bottom corner. And change that to a single door. We'll do that in a second. Back to the panel arrangement. We can now reduce these down to what we need, one by one. That means no mullions, no transoms. Go back to our operable elements. Now this is all nice and big so we can see everything. It's actually a little too big, but that's okay. We go down to our swing door single. We could reduce that a little bit. If you want to make it lifelike, again, just think about the sizes that you're going to do. So this is probably going to be 2100 door by 900 or something like that. So that just makes the interface a little bit more realistic. Sorry, I didn't mean to go there. We want to go to our panel arrangement. I actually am in the habit of going back there and navigating via here because I just have my pages and I can just hit define and that takes me to the page. Okay, so that's our panel arrangement. Once again, we've got casing on this element. I might just want to see that 3D a bit bigger, so I reduce and expand. So I want to turn that casing off. There's no reason it's actually turned on in the default. It just ends up being the last sort of things that I was playing around with that left turned on. So I might just get that out of the default. Okay, so we've got a simple door there. We should put in our sizes. We can just do it up here or we can go to the page, but I'll just do it up here. Let's do it at 900. And that's a 2100. Something like that. Actually, it's 2040 or something, isn't it? Okay, so we've got our size. Let's now go set the size of our frame. So we'll just move up here to the frame profile. Typical internal door. It might be a 70 by 40 or something like that, or a 90 by 40. Let's do a 90. And then we'll just go have a look at the door panel so we can see what sort of panel we want to use. Sorry, not panel arrangement. That goes in here into the door panel. So using this drop down menu, if we just minimize these, you have your general settings here for the shape and frame profiles and mullions and transom sizes. Then when you come down here, you get into your panel arrangement. That's a bit of a design feature, and then the operable elements. Within the operable elements, you've got sash settings and door panel settings and handles and thresholds and things like that within the door panels. And then at the bottom here we have the fixtures, and the fixtures just covers all the other features such as casings and elements that aren't actually part of the window assembly. Okay, so we want to go to the door panel. It's an internal door, so we're just going to use this plain door panel, and that suits us perfectly. What you can do here is, if you need to allow space for the floor finish to go through, so often there's miscalculations on site because door panels were cut to a size and frames were cut to a size, not allowing for finishes and all that sort of thing. This allows you to put a cut in the bottom. So if we wanted to run, say, tiling through here, typical cut might be around 12 to 15 mil or something like that. So just put 12 and 15 mil, and that actually adjusts the 3D geometry and the size fields in the schedule. So just so you can see that, I'll just do a slightly bigger one. So you can see it cuts out the bottom of the door. Just leave that at 0 for now. Here we set the leaf thickness and obviously the position of glass. If there was any glass, we don't have to worry about that here. So we've just got a 40 mil thick door. And then we can add kick plates and things like that. If you want to add handles, that's in one of the other pages. So we go into the door panels, you can set a threshold. So you can actually turn a threshold on and off and set its oversizes. So if I turn this threshold on, obviously we don't want that sort of oversizing here. In internal, this is an internal door, so we probably wouldn't have a threshold anyway. So I'll turn that back off. In the handles, we have just a few generic shapes, but you can adjust all the sizing of these elements. So if we just put on a very typical handle for an internal door, and that sizing looks a bit funny. I think we need to bump that out. Same on the other side. Material, so that was looking a bit green, so we'll just change that to something. There we go. And there's an internal door. Click OK, and you can see the door there. We've got this hotspot, which should allow us to open the door, but it must be locked. But we'll go in, and if we go down to our quick list here, we can see that that's fixed, in a fixed position for the 3D, fixed closed. So if we uncheck that box, now we should be able to use this. There we go. Standard swing door. So now if we go to the 2D, and you can see we also have the hotspot here to adjust the panel in 2D. And you will notice that the 2D and the 3D door opening positions are completely independent. So if I set that to 100%, you can see that's open to 90 degrees, whereas this one stays where the 2D setting was applied. Okay, so that's how you achieve standard windows and doors through the Infinite Openings tool. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and look forward to some more videos to come. Ta.